I'd like to welcome you back to our training modules on Vcarve Pro here at Ingersoll District Collegiate, to our second module, which we will be looking at how to import JPEGs for logos, images, and things like that. So favorite sports team logo, something to create something that's unique that you'll enjoy. We're going to begin here with looking for a logo to use, and so we're going to start by getting onto our Google. Now, if you don't have a computer that is internet access, then you'll do this on a separate machine and you'll go through. So I was thinking we should do something related to Made in Canada, because that's something that's very important to us here as we consider the opportunities within the skilled trades here in Canada. I'm going to be looking, I typed in Made in Canada and I've chosen images here, and I'm just looking for a logo, something that would suit something. So a lot of this is based on appeal, but there are certainly logos that will machine better than other logos. And so you can see here I've got a whole selection of different things that I could choose, each one with its own little characteristics. The one thing you do want to look for is logos or things that are as clean as possible. So you can see how there's a speckle in here. Nothing wrong with trying this, you're not going to break anything, but looking for ones that are crisp. You can see how the flag here is all red, this one here is speckled. I'd still give it a try if you really like it. There's nothing to lose in trying. But as I scroll through here, I really like this logo right here. The Made in Canada around the border, to me, looks almost like a coin, and with the rippled edge. And so the only thing that we want to kind of verify as we go here is the size of the item. So you can see here when I click on it, it gives me a size here, in this case 1299 by 1300. So that's a good size. Our normal goal, it would be over 300 in any of those two numbers. And it just makes it grainy, makes it so that the image doesn't come out as clean. But again, you're welcome to try it. So if you really like something and you can't find a clean logo, looking for something, you're welcome to give it a try. There's nothing to lose when it comes to that. I'm going to click on this to get as close to the real images as I possibly can in order to increase the size. And so when I get to this site here, I'm going to now choose, I right-clicked on the image itself with my right mouse button, and I'm going to choose Save Image, and I'm going to put that onto my desktop. So you want to watch carefully where you place this, because it can get a little confusing depending on where the last person who used your computer placed items. But in this case, you can see it's going to this PC desktop. So I'm going to choose Save. I'm now going to launch my Vcarve Pro. And for this assignment, what I would encourage people to do is we're going to use a piece of material that is 12 by 16. So you'll enter those sizes here. So you can see I've already run some pieces that size, but we type in our size at 12 by 16, and we're going to run 3/4 inch material, likely MDF, but we'll make that decision. It is very important, again, with all of our projects, that the size here matches the actual material that you have. So if there is, when we cut the piece, if there's a change in the part size, we have to come back and make those changes. Again, our 0 position is going to be on the machine bed. Datum down in the bottom left corner. This is exactly how the machine is going to, or the piece is going to look when it's on the machine, and we're going to say OK. So we've been through the basic menus in our last tutorial, so this should start to feel a little bit familiar. But you can see our file operations up in here, and you'll notice that there's a couple of them that have these little birds, and so it's an image. So importing bitmaps, tracing bitmaps. And so those are the two key ones that we're going to be using, but we are still going to be transforming, moving some things around, centering it as we've done in the past, and our offset tools here in order to create some borders and things like that go around. There is the opportunity here to customize how the logo looks as well. So we're going to begin here by importing our image that I just chose, and so you can see mine defaulted here to the desktop. If it didn't, you need to select and go to where that path was where you saved that file, and you can see my images there. So I'm going to click open. We're not too concerned right now about the size of the image. We're just going to let it sit there. I want to make it much bigger, obviously, to just go that small in the middle of my piece isn't going to suit, but I'm going to zoom in here, and we're going to start to create this. Right now, I've got nothing to work with. In order to CNC mill something, we need to have some geometry or lines for the machine to follow. And right now what we have is a whole series of dots, because that's how JPEGs and bitmaps and other graphics are created, by holding a dot, a pixel, and then using that with various colors to create the shades and record a photograph. What we want to do is convert this into lines, and this is a really neat little feature included. It's called Trace Bitmap. And so we're going to select that. And although to my eye it looks like there's only two colors, a red and a white, you'll see that the actual image when Vcarve looks at it is actually made up of quite a number of colors. And some of that is this watermarking and things that are there. But what we want to do is reduce the colors to as few as possible. And so you'll notice if I go nice and slowly here, the image changes just slightly. And so we're going to go until we had the crispest image possible, usually around 3 or 4 colors. In this case, it looks like I actually am going to get down to 2, just white and red. So you can see with just that little color in, if I stop here, you can see how I still have some lines. Probably not going to change my geometry too much, leaving those in there. But the fact that I can get down to 2 colors is great. And now this will allow me to trace. Okay, we're going to scroll down here. Again, the series of questions. We can play with these numbers if you're not getting a good image through, and I'll show you some of those things a little later. Then you can play with some of these filters to try and crispen things up. But if you have a high resolution, again 300K plus size file, and you're bringing it in, then it should trace fairly well. I'm going to select here that we trace the red, and you can see that when I do that, it kind of shows me what I'm going to get. It's going to put lines now around between the white and the gray here, and I can preview my line. So you can see how it's placed a line now in here around all of the text and all of those parts that are there. And I'm really happy with that. So I'm going to say apply, and it's done. I now have geometry that can follow. Now, the image behind doesn't serve any purpose anymore. So you can see how I can still select it by clicking, and it goes red here. I'm going to delete that photograph, and so now I'm left with just the geometry, and I'm going to close this window. At this point now I can actually use this to create something. So I want to make this much bigger on my screen. I want to utilize this piece of wood as much as possible, so I'm going to go back again to the transform window here, and I know that my piece is 12 inches tall, so I'm going to give this a height of 11 inches. So it stays just inside, and that looks good, and we're going to scale that up, and we sit there to go. Again, I like to draw. I would encourage everyone to take the time to do this just because it creates a block, but I want to actually draw an outline around here to make sure that I don't machine too close to the edge of my piece. And so one way to do that, in the last video we created a rectangle a certain size, but another way to do this is if you ensure that your anchor point is down here at 0, 0, and you bring right down here, and I place right on top, and I'm holding my left mouse button down, I can drag a rectangle up until it will snap at the top. And so it's now created a box for me that's exactly 12 by 16, and I can choose apply. I'm going to offset that box, select it, and I'm going to offset it inwards. I'm going to go 0.5 of an inch. I want to stay inside here. And again, this is just a visual border so that we don't get too close to the outside edge of our part in our machining, hitting any of our fence systems or any hold down clamps, anything that we might be using. And it just, again, reminds me of what's going on here and what I want to do. When I select this now, you'll see that I get the whole unit has been grouped together to become one item. So I can either select all of it or not. And sometimes that's just fine. But sometimes we want to change things, and as I look at this, I'm not a big fan of this ripply outside edge, so I want to get rid of that. So we can actually edit the image once you bring it in. So I'm going to select that with my left button, and the right button here now I'm going to click on, and I'm going to scroll down here to ungroup these objects. And I'm just going to say put them back to their original layers. What that's going to do is break this up into individual items, so now I can select. So if there's something that I really like, I can keep it. If there's something that I don't, I can get rid of. So in this case, I'm going to get rid of. I've selected that, and I'm just going to hit the delete button on my screen there. And I've got now this nice circle that says Made in Canada with the maple leaf on the inside. And I'm quite happy with this. There's two things we want to do here. One, we want to carve this. So we're going to go through that process, very similar to carving text. But we also are going to have the machine cut this out for us so that we have a disc that is actually here. So that's another neat feature that we've got. So we're going to try a different command here to be able to actually cut this circular piece right out of this rectangular piece for ourselves here. So if you're doing a hockey logo or something like that, you could put a circle around it and do this same feature. If I was wanting to do that, I can actually select a circle here and find the middle of the piece and place a circle on there. I'm going to say apply for that. Okay, so now we're going to play around with our carving options. Again, with my toolpaths, I'm going to open this up and hit the hide pin here so that it locks that down. And the menus now as we go are going to cover or go underneath of me here. So I'm going to turn myself off on the screen here and just continue with you just listening to me. We've used the Vcarve button already. I'm going to select the Vcarve here and turn off my clearance tools that I've been using on a past project, turn off my flat bottom, and we are going to carve with a 90-degree V-bit. So this is where I would suggest you start. If you're carving a large logo, anything bigger than probably 3 inches in size, then this is a good spot to start with a 90-degree bit. And we're going to select everything that we've done here. You'll notice I didn't quite get the whole thing, so I'm going to come back here and select absolutely everything and scroll down here, and we're going to let the software show us what this is going to look like. Sometimes I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen. It's telling me a warning right away. I really like this about this software. It tells me that I'm going to cut right through it, but this is just a simulation, so let's see what it's talking about here. I'm going to say preview all my toolpaths, and you'll see that based on my material being 3/4 of an inch thick, that this is going to start by carving a large V over here. It's going to carve the Made in Canada out as text, and then you can see if I let it go as it is, it's going to actually cut right through, creating these really nice sculpted lines down on the maple leaf. So that looks pretty cool, but I certainly don't want to cut through my piece, and I don't want to cut into the machine itself, so that's a problem. So you'll recall, as we did in our last tutorial, we're going to come back here and we're going to establish a flat bottom here. We're going to say, no matter what, let's not carve any deeper than a 1/4 of an inch thick, and we'll go back and calculate this. And again, when you do this, you need to come back and say reset the preview, and we can preview everything all over again. So there's what I'm going to get if I go exactly as I've selected right now. Now, we've still got some choices here, and I'd like to try something different because this has carved out the text as a V pattern, but I'd like to do it where the text is raised. If you think about a Canadian coin or something like that, the text is raised and the area around the text is sunken in. And so we're just going to play around here with a few different options. We're going to go back and click on our V path and go back to our 2D view. And all I'm going to do here is unselect this outside boundary that I've made here. So to do that, if I just click, I lose all of them. But if I hold down the Shift key and come and hold and touch this one, then it unselects that. So now it's only going to carve these lines. And the key with V carving is it always wants to create a path between 2 lines. So when I did it the first time, it was carving a V, if you recall, between these 2 areas. Now it's going to carve a V in between here. It's not going to carve out this area. It's going to leave that up full height. Now it's going to carve between the circle here and the top of the A, and that's going to give me a raised letter set. So we're going to come back here and choose calculate. Again, I need to reset my preview, and we're going to say preview all of our toolpaths. So I can already tell I like this a lot. The raised lettering here so that the Made in Canada sits sunken out or sunken to the back surface, and the letters are raised out, and my maple leaf is sitting raised out. We can still do some editing here. It would be neat if this maple leaf was cut into the center here, and I could still have my raised lettering. So I'm going to come back to my 2D view, and this is part of the extra little fun parts that you can play with. So I'm going to select this, and I'm actually going to choose my offset command, which we use quite frequently. And I'm going to say, what if I offset that in maybe 1/8 of an inch? So now I have a double. And so what's going to happen now if we go back here, and I'm going to now, using that Shift key, now select this one as well, and let this recalculate. Reset my preview, and let's take a look at the toolpath. And I think I just fell in love. I like the way that looks. Okay, you can see all the sunken in work and the raised out leaf. I think that's got a really neat little look to it. You'll notice here as it machines, if I zoom in using my scroll button, you can see that the V-bit's going to do a lot of work here taking out the interior. And so we're going to come back here and enhance this toolpath just to speed it up. Close this, click on my V-path, and I'm going to use a clearance tool. So I'm going to click on here and select a 1/4 inch end mill. And what this is going to do, because our machine does have a tool changer, is it will create a separate path of a larger bit to go in and take away the bulk of the material. You can see the blue path in here. It's going to clean that out. Instead of doing probably 10 or 15 passes to clear 1/4 of an inch, it's now going to come through and do that in a single pass. So we'll hit preview, and you'll see it happen here really quickly. It's going to clean out all the rough stuff, and you can see the parts that are left here for the small little V-bit to clean out, and that's not too bad. Now, we can, if we want to, because the machine does automatically change, why don't we speed this up even more with a second tool change and have it pick up an 1/8 inch end mill and let it clean that part out as well. So I'm going to choose calculate here, and you'll notice now there's 3 tools showing. So we have the V-bit that's going to go through and do the main carving. We have the clearance tools that are going to come through, and the large clearance tool that's going to come through after the fact to go through. So we'll reset this preview and let's take a look. We should see very little of the small mark, so you can see how it's going to finish that stuff off. So I'm really happy with that. I think that looks really, really good, and so we're going to consider that a perfect scenario. But what I do want to do as an extra here is I want the machine to cut it out, and so I have this extra line on the outside here, and I want a router bit to come and cut this out to create a disc for me. And so I'm going to select that bit, and we're going to try a different tool path up here. So we've used the Vcarves up until now, but another very helpful tool path is called profiling. And profiling just means you want the cutter to follow a line. So very similar in selections. I'm going to select it here, and it's going to ask me a series of questions. Where do I want to start? Well, I want to start at the top of the part at 0. How thick is my part? 0.75, my depth. What bit do I want to use? I want to use a 1/4 inch end mill. Happens to already be selected here, but 0.25 end mill. And we're going to select there. And then what do I want to do? Do I want to go on the outside of the line? You can see how it puts the bit on the outside. Do I want to go on the inside, which would then cut it a 1/4 inch smaller, or I can choose also to go right on the line, which is going to go half of the diameter, or an 1/8 of an inch in this case. I'm going to say outside. I always climb cut when possible. In our normal router safety, we talk about conventional cutting. We only ever cut conventionally into the feet of the bit, but because of the CNC holding our pieces for us, climb cutting allows us to do those things. And I'm also going to add a ramping cut. So ramping cuts are used by the machine to help protect the bit. So if you want to think about a drill bit, when we drill straight down, it plunges right down into the material. What we want to do with this on the ramp is have it come in on a distance as it comes in on an angle. So you can see here, here's our specified ramp. So the bit, instead of going perfectly straight down, it's just going to come in. I have a distance here of 3 inches, which is great, and it's going to come in on an angle. This extends the life of our tool, so that's why we use it. And you can see that it's now placed that path in place. If I reset my tool paths, preview all of them, it's just run through and showing you how it's going to cut out the circle. Now the reason it did that is because I only have the profile selected here. But if I choose all my tool paths, reset, you can see the entire step. It's going to start with a 1/4 inch end mill, going to do the clearance, go to an 1/8 inch end mill, clear out more material, switch to the V bit, finish the carving, then switch to the profile bit and cut my piece out. And in this case, we do want it to go right through because we want it to free that piece from the part. We are essentially ready to go to the CNC machine at this point, and so I would close this, and you're going to create your job summary page as we always request. You're going to label this. I'm going to call it module 2 JPEGs, and I'm going to save that to the job summary folder. And again, remember, you want to put your name, so follow the rules and put the postman on there as well so we can tell whose file belongs to who. And what I want you to do again is to go back to this page, and when you're ready to run, you're going to find the file that's there, right click on it and choose open. This will allow me to come over to your computer to verify what you've selected. We'll have your piece of material there to verify, and I'm going to take a look at the datum positions and clearance angles. We'll verify the tools to what's in our tool changer, and you're going to be ready to run. With that in place, we are ready to create the actual file. So I'm going to close this, and just like you've done in all your other ones, we're going to choose all of the tool paths. You're going to export this as one single file to the Axis AM our A2MC inch, and we're going to say save and put that again into our jobs folder. Okay, so you'll be saving that into your file. I'm going to get an error here because my jobs folder is connected right to the machine, and I don't have that cable in right now. So it's going to pop up here with an error saying that it can't access the folder that I'm looking for. But you'll save that toolpath, and we will be ready to take that stick to the CNC machine to be loaded. And so we're good to go. So that completes this module. I would encourage you to have some fun, to look for images that intrigue and are exciting to you, that you can create something that's unique and your own from this. There's nothing to stop you from also adding additional text, maybe somebody's name, or mixing and having multiple JPEGs, multiple images carved on the same thing. But work your way through, have some fun, and I look forward to seeing what you create. Again, we want to thank you for joining us here at Ingersoll District Collegiate, and have fun with the CNC, and we look forward to seeing what you create here as we go.